Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle. I will not be joined by the mics for this episode, so I am solo dolo. But the title of today's episode is Training Camp Topics, and we brought back very good friend of this show, Mr. Michael Phillips of 910 The Fan in Richmond, to kind of help us preview training camp. That's going to be practice kicks off on Wednesday. But first things first, how are you doing, Michael?
I'm feeling good, so I'm coming off vacation myself, wrapping up, and time to get back at training camp. I'll be out there starting Sunday, so we'll miss the first couple days in person. We'll be on site next week, though, which I'm always really excited. The interviews are always really good at training camp because everybody's excited. Everybody's got a lot of momentum. Everybody's feeling good, and guys are a little more relaxed than they are in season. So that's always one of my favorite times of the year.
And before we get into the nitty gritty and all the big topics surrounding the Commanders, are you more like a northern kind of United States beach guy, or are you more the southern beaches?
We go to the Outer Banks. That's our show. I don't know that that's my favorite. I think that's accessible. Yeah, I'm a West Coast guy. I love vacationing on the West Coast. Send me out to Cali any day.
Have you surfed before?
I've never surfed before.
Okay.
Yeah.
I heard the West Coast, that's where you got to go to. Whenever you see a surfing person on the East Coast, you're kind of like, that's just for show at this point. But let's ride this wave into training camp, so to speak, Michael. Terry McLaurins. There's been a lot of random accounts surrounding Terry saying predictions of what they think is going to happen. One saying that they're working out a trade for Terry McLaurin. There's another saying that they're working on a deal that's going to get done on Monday. What do you think ultimately what happens with Terry McLaurin?
Yeah, this situation obviously changes by the second. They're not trading Terry McLaurin. I say that with a great deal of confidence. That is not one of the outcomes that's in play here. I don't understand why they wouldn't go to 30. I think ultimately when the numbers come out, I think that'll be the number that was important to Terry's side. And I often refrain from picking sides in this because I love Terry. I love a lot of the guy. You want the guys to get theirs. It's a salary cap league. We're constrained, obviously, by the salary cap. So, this is easy in baseball, right? Like, baseball guy wants money. Well, give him the money, It's not my money. Just give him the money.
Unless you play for the Nationals.
They don't have any money. So it's a salary cap league. By all accounts, they have the money. I don't see how this is a risky investment to give Terry 3 years guaranteed, or something similar to that. I'm just partisan on this one, Kyle. Where's the downside here?
And do you think that if anything, because I've been saying for a couple months, Michael, that I think that by the time training camp is here, that they'll get a deal done. And so now these reports are coming out saying that Monday is the key date. Do you think it's going to be something that's going to get prolonged into camp?
Well, I think the closest comparable we've got is probably the Ryan Kerrigan extension, his second one. You think about fan favorite, guy who was unquestionably very good at what he did, but not elite at what he did, right? And I say that not disparagingly to Terry, but there are receivers who are better than Terry. Terry is not a top 5 receiver in the NFL, but he's both very good at what he does. He's a top 32 for sure. He's a wide receiver 1 in the NFL. And he's also a fan favorite who's been through a lot of stuff. And you remember that Ryan Kerrigan deal got done literally the morning training camp started, way back when, whatever that was, 14 or 15. Those years all blend together.
Yeah.
I'm optimistic it will be similar here. The only wrinkle I can possibly see is this new ownership group not fully appreciating the history of what Terry means to the fans. I think they've picked up on it by now, though. I would agree with you. I do think something gets done, and something gets done early this week.
Yeah, and to bring this off of Terry, just because I think that Terry does have the leverage in this situation. I know that kind of is asinine to say, but ultimately the team, they want to pick up on and build on what they did last season. And cohesion is obviously very big for the team. I just can't wrap my head around the fact that they would be willing to allow him to sit out to possibly cause an issue or wrinkle into the offense heading into the season. I feel like that is a very vital and most important thing, because we all know this drives through Jayden, and by hindering his progress whatsoever heading into the season is a huge step backwards just to be able to get your way contractually as an organization, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and we may get to it, but I think the odds are this is probably Cliff Kingsbury's last year here. If they
Yeah.
have similar successes to what they had last year,
No kidding.
it's hard to imagine him not getting a head coaching job at the end of this year. And you hate to put too much pressure on this season. I mean, we hope Jayden will be here 15 seasons, right? So it seems nonsensical to put pressure on any one of them. But I think Cliff Kingsbury's showed he was really good at what he did last year. You'd like to make sure he's got everything he needs to be successful if this is, in fact, his last year with the team.
Yeah, and I would imagine that any team that's going to be drafting one of those great rookie quarterbacks coming out of this draft are going to be looking heavily at Cliff Kingsbury, judging by what he did with Jayden. But, old AK-47 is firing off some shots earlier today, that meaning President Trump saying that they need to go back to the Redskins, and same with the Cleveland Indians, which is just, it's hilarious. Just the fact that now, like I just said last week on Twitter, it's like we're not arguing about a name, we're not arguing about uniforms. This is normalcy that we're all arguing about Terry McLaurin's extension. This is what successful teams typically argue about in July. And of course, here comes AK-47. Do you think that he's going to hinder or has any influence into them going back to RFK based on what he said?
Well, he called him the Washington whatevers, and honestly, I kind of like that. Let's just go with that. Washington whatevers, keep it moving, and acknowledges that nobody's happy no matter what happens. Yeah. And I thought the new alternate uniforms were a litmus test, because the correct answer to the alternate uniforms was, that is sweet, awesome. Let's roll with that, and everybody shut your mouth and quit talking. The people who say, oh my gosh, that's not good enough, you still got, no, we're done. We're over it. We've moved on. They have nodded to the past. They are retiring Art Monk's jersey. They have brought back in the alumni into the fold. They have brought the uniforms back into the fold. They say Redskins when they do historic highlights. I mean, this is 99% of the wish list, right? There's one item there that's not going to happen. If you can't be happy with the 99%, you're just a person who's destined not to be happy in life. And there are a lot of those on Twitter. That's where they live. As to the president, I guess we'll just go deep on the RFK thing to start with, because I always thought it was a misplay by Mayor Bowser to give the August 15th deadline, which did not appear to be tethered to anything in reality other than I want to get this done quickly. I don't think the city council is trying to drag its feet. I think they're trying to flex on her and say, you can't give us a deadline. We'll get to it when we get to it. That said,
so
in a weird way, this has brought counter leverage back, in that if city council would like the president to stop talking, and knowing the political leanings of DC, they do, getting this thing done is actually the quickest way to get him to stop talking, because after RFK's done, there are no more leverage points on the name. He can talk about it however often he wants. He can fire off tweets or truths or whatever during Sunday Night Football. It doesn't matter at that point. So similar to the Terry deal, right? Like, it gets done when it gets done. But the sooner it gets done, the sooner we can quit talking about stupid stuff. So hopefully DC Council sees that and gets on the ball.
Absolutely. And like I said on Twitter, like, you can say it all you want, but you should probably be saying that to Goodell and the sponsors who really pushed that thing through. And they've already made the point of utilizing the logo back, which was never the issue. It was the name itself. And they've used the logo, and they showed that they're going back to it. The Chris Cooley picture they uploaded. Keith Gray did a great job of highlighting this. It was front and center. They're not hiding from it anymore. So like you said, they're at the 99%. Calm down, everybody. We're good to go. Now let's get into the real important business, Michael, with training camp. Veterans, obviously the rookies reported on Friday. Veterans are reporting in on Tuesday, and then practice on Wednesday. Let's get a spotlight on who you think will shine for this training camp, not just on Wednesday, but just throughout training camp.
Well, there's two guys I'd like to shine. So I'm not telling you they will, Kyle.
Okay.
I'm just saying I really want them to. Ben Sinnott, number one.
Okay.
Look, just wasn't good enough last year. But also was a rookie in the National Football League in a really complex offense, playing behind a guy who did everything that needed to get done. So there was really no urgency on him to step up. So, certainly we can explain it away. Bottom line, year two in the NFL, they expected to make that jump. You remember Morgan Moses was not good his first year, came back second year, dominated. It's certainly not unthinkable that
Right.
Ben Sinnott shows up ready to roll year two, makes the leap forward. If he doesn't, you've got a long-term problem at what I view as a really important position offensively, given that Zach Ertz is only going to be able to go for so long. We all see that. So I just think it's really important to get him rolling. I think it would be really good for the operation as a whole to have him play at a caliber where you can say, all right, we don't need to do any desperation moves this offseason. We can roll with him moving forward. Defensively, I think all eyes on Marshawn Lattimore, another
Mm,
guy who I'll be honest, I'm more pessimistic on this one. That's been my position all offseason. I don't think he's going to flash. I hope he
really?
does, because I think if he does, I mean, that validates Adam Peters putting his neck on the line, trading those draft picks, making the gamble. You know, solves a problem for you, allows you to play everybody else a little bit closer to their true position, right? Which I think is really important. Trey Amos, you don't have to rush him into anything. Sanders still, you can play him in a position that's more natural for him. If Marshawn Lattimore flashes and looks really good, that's going to mean awesome things for this secondary. As I alluded to, I worry about the guys who, if that's your skill set, you're a number one, you're an alpha dog guy. When they lose it, a lot of times they lose it quickly. So pulling for him to regain it, because it would mean very good things for this team and the roster. Not counting on that one.
Yeah, and if he doesn't do well, because like last year, obviously Emmanuel Forbes was a first round pick by the former administration. And so it was easy for them to kind of take him off the field. That was very evident that they did that. But with this being Adam Peters, somebody that he drafted, if he doesn't come back in a big way, that kind of forces the issue of saying, are you going to be as quick to make that change as you were to the one that wasn't the one that you picked, right, or traded for, so to speak?
Yeah, and there's obviously financial cost to moving on from him, but I don't think it's unbearable or anything like that. I think from a salary cap perspective, you can cut him whenever you need to cut him, and that's fine. I think you're hoping you get him to the season, get him to play well enough. I think the big question hovering over the whole thing is, how do you play Sanders still, right?
Mm.
Do you get him rolling at a nickel position, at a slot position, saying, we got our guys, we got Trey Amos, we got Marshawn Lattimore, or do you start him by saying, we got two uncertainties here, right? A rookie is always uncertainty. I love the
Yes.
Trey Amos pick. Rookies are uncertain. And you've got Marshawn Lattimore, the uncertainty there everybody's familiar with, of course. Do you need to start him outside in training camp under the thought process of the odds of both of them panning out into 17-game NFL starters this year maybe feels a little bit lower than we would think?
Yeah, and obviously them re-signing Noah Igbenogany as well just gives them a little bit more flexibility in that regard if something doesn't pan out the one way or another, to your point.
And I think Jonathan Jones is your classic,
Yeah.
veteran signing guy who's going to be able to plug in when you need to plug him in. Replacement level players, the baseball term, but certainly one of those Adam Peters guys comes lauded for his leadership ability in the locker room.
Yes, and I called this incorrectly myself, and looking back on it, I could see why. Because with Cosme possibly not being able to come back right away, which wouldn't be crazy to say or to think, but
Yep.
my thought process was like I want Brandon Coleman, the veteran, not really a veteran, but 1 year under his belt, would like to have him play on the outside next to Connerly at right guard with right tackle. But obviously they've already slotted him in as left guard, which makes more sense that you would have that kind of veteran at left tackle next to Coleman at guard and obviously badass. But what do you think happens with right guard until Cosme returns?
Yeah, so if Connerly wins the job at right tackle, which he's a rookie, again, rookie uncertainty. He's also really good, and he's played a lot of college games against top-notch competition. I think he wins the right tackle job coming out of camp. I don't think that's a reach to suggest that he's ready to go NFL day one. I don't think that's why they draft him. I think they draft him to ultimately be the left tackle, the future of course, when Laramie Tunsil moves on. I don't think that it's a stretch, though, to suggest that he slots in right away at right tackle once his camp's over. It gives you two guys, Wiley and Allegretti, right? Plug in whoever you like there at right guard, establish a rotation. Both of those guys can do it. Both of them have proven they can do it, and it gives you one really good depth piece with whoever you don't use. Kind of funny, both those guys come off the Chiefs team last year to be players here, and now arguably are competing for that final offensive line roster spot in this camp. But I think if we've learned anything about offensive lines in football, there will be a sixth guy needed and a seventh guy needed as the season goes on. So I certainly think whoever loses that competition won't be hanging his head. He'll know he'll be in the lineup before long because that's the way of the world at offensive line.
Yeah, you would, in a perfect world, you'd love to be able to line up all 5 guys for all 17 games, but obviously we don't live in a perfect one, of course. My next question for you, the running back room, is it a good thing that the expectations for that room is so low?
Well, I think that people aren't giving proper credit to Deebo Samuel as improving that room. To me, the Deebo Samuel signing improves your wide receiver, obviously. I think it improves your running back, too. He can take touches. He can threaten to take touches, which sometimes is just as important. I think that's a really good thing. Austin Eckler's health, I think, is a real issue here. Concussions are no joke. We remember that with Jordan Reed from back in the day, of course. That's going to be a dicey situation as long as he continues to play professional football. Brian Robinson, I think that the hopes were so high that it's kind of a disappointment to see where he landed. Where he landed is a guy who's going to play NFL football for a few more years and is capable of it. He's just not a game-changing back. But yeah, I agree. Expectations are low for that room. I think that you probably want to get Deebo a bunch of touches. I think that helps make everybody else a little bit better. My prediction for guy we all fall in love with during training camp, only for him to make the practice squad, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. The buzz on him is all right. Oh my gosh, look at this guy. He's a find. The story's great. Didn't play college football. Diamond in the rough. Adam Peters strikes again. I think he'll get a lot of touches during training camp, and we'll all fall in love with him because we got to pick a guy and do that every year.
Absolutely. And to wrap this up, only a couple more questions for you, Michael, but the strong safety position, obviously Quan Martin has free safety locked up. Joe Witt, before the last press conference, really highlighted Quan and what he expects of Quan being one of the best free safeties in the league. But that leaves the question with strong safety. Obviously, they brought in Harris, but Tyler Owens is there as well, and that's somebody that we only saw in a special teams capacity last year. How do you think that is going to shape out? Do you expect to see Tyler Owens competing and possibly winning that starting job?
You're going to have to ask somebody else that one because you were talking to the Will Harris fan club right here, Kyle. Okay. I think people are really going to love this guy. I am a big Will Harris backer. I love the signing. He's physical. He's fast to the ball. He's all the things we celebrate here and have been looking for since Sean Taylor. I'm not saying he's Sean Taylor good because he's not, but he plays with that edge. We have celebrated safeties who play with the edge. We wanted Brandon Merriweather to be that guy. We wanted Ryan Clark round 2 to be that guy.
Right.
We love physical, fast-moving, nose-to-the-ball safeties. That's what this guy is. I don't know how good he's going to be long-term, but I think he wins the job easily, and I think that people will really like his style of play and how it meshes with this team's history.
Yeah, that highlight against the Cowboys, and absolutely being a weapon for the Saints there in the red zone was something that we would absolutely love and bring in. Obviously, Jeremy Chin brought that at times last season. But the latest acquiring move by Washington was going to get Von Miller. The old man himself, respect the heck out of that guy. He's ring chasing, as we all like to expect. But he signed a $6 million deal with incentives that could earn him up to $10 million for a 1-year deal. Chuck was the first guy on Twitter I saw bring this up, the closing aspect of Von Miller coming in late in games, sealing up those sacks late in games to help the team have that cushion of victory in the score margin. What do you expect from Von Miller?
Yeah, I'm excited to see how much he can give and how the team will portion out his reps. And I think this is only good news for Dorrance Armstrong and Cleveland Farrell, both of whom I don't think should be 100% snap guys either. So you'll need a rotation there. You'll need a way to get those guys, in and out of games. I love having Von Miller in crunch time. I'm fine with the salary, as I'll reference back to our Terry discussion. They have the money. They're not in a cap crunch. If you've got a guy, and what an endorsement that the guy who wants to chase a ring is coming here to do it. I think that's pretty cool. I don't worry about the old age thing. I mean, that was the Patriots for so many years with Brady. That is the Chiefs now with Mahomes. If you're a good team, older guys will come there and want to play there to get the ring. The challenge for these guys, obviously, is if they don't back that up this year, if this is a major regression year, you're going to lose that reputation in a hurry, obviously. So I think, if anything, it's great for this year's team, and it cranks up the pressure to say, you need to back that up and continue to be a contender. Otherwise, that pipeline of guys is going to dry up pretty quickly.
Absolutely. Last one I have for you. Obviously, we talked about Connerly. We talked about Amos a little bit. What rookies that you're going to monitor at training camp? I think the one that you would obviously hint to that we haven't talked about yet is Jaylen Lane. What would you say?
You nailed it. That was the guy I was going to. I would say that returner is going to be a bigger part of the game this year than it has been in years past. The NFL, I think the number was 33% of kickoffs got returned last year. They are hoping with the rules changes to get that as high as 60% this year, right?
Wow.
So a very big difference. Who knows if they'll achieve that or not, but you got to be ready in case they do. I think he will be in the lineup week one as your returner. Which is, of course, an incredibly important role. Because he's in the lineup, you can use him on offense, which is kind of a weird thing to say. But, I don't know if Jaylen Lane would win a spot on the 53 as a wide receiver. But what I know is Jaylen Lane is on the 53 because he's the returner. So you might as well build some packages for him, put him to use as a wide receiver. And I think that's the fun part, is it's a little bit house money with him as a receiver this year. He's here for a specific purpose, but also see what he's got doing the other thing.
My man, absolutely love it. Phillips, before you get out of here, would you like to plug your social media handle and your show, sir? Just in case anyone watching hasn't followed you yet and would like to come follow and listen.
Oh, man, Monday through Friday, we start the party at 10 a.m. It's 9:10 The Fan in Richmond. It's on the Odyssey app, same as the Fan DC. You can find us alongside those guys. We'll be live at camp starting next week. I am always fired up for that. We make a podcast out of it. It's called MP on the Mic, and we're going to have a lot of fun. Thank you for having me on the show.
Of course. You're going to be in Ashburn for it?
I'll be in Ashburn starting, I think, on day 4 of practice. So I sit out the acclimation days. It'll be fun. The people there will have the reporting for you. I want to go when the pads are on and we can start to see some things.
Well, welcome back home, Michael, and make sure you tell everyone that, they're obviously they miss you, of course. Have a good one, Michael. Enjoy.
Well, that's a revolving door of its own out there. All right. See you, Kyle.
Absolutely. Have a good one, Michael. All right, everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Michael Phillips. Always appreciate his time that he comes on here and gives us some, because he is very knowledgeable. Being with 910 The Fan, obviously used to be on the beat before, covering for the Richmond Dispatch, but obviously now he's with 910 The Fan, and always love hearing him and his thoughts. I thought it was very telling what he thought about with Terry. He coincides with what I believe is going to happen with Terry McLaurin, and that it's going to get done. There's no other way to get to think about it. I know others out there will highlight and say, well, they can Terry's under contract. He could continue playing. But my whole argument in regards to this is you don't want a disgruntled player forced into playing this year. That's not a good recipe. You just want everyone to be bought into what is coming into this season, to be bought into winning and not looking ahead to say what is going to follow me after this, what could possibly be coming down the pipeline. And that's one thing I would highlight to say they are very invested in not only in building on what they did last year, but in doing better than that. And you don't want any hiccups. Just like if you're driving a car, you're paying too much attention to the side or behind you or in front of you possibly are running off the road. And that's what you don't want to have happen with this franchise. And I totally expect them to get this done so that we all are singing Kumbaya and riding into this season very excited about what the future holds. Now let's answer some fan questions before we are joined by our next guest. This first one was submitted on Instagram. This is by our guy, James Bonato, who also bought the Burgundy Zone T-shirt, the black one with the gold W. It was absolutely beautiful to see James have that on. But his question is, surely we have attracted the league's attention with Jayden Daniels, which means our opponents have had the offseason to review tape and come up with a scheme to stop Daniels in our offense. If football isn't part of a chess match, is it logical to assume that Kingsbury will be countering with new tactics and new design to thwart this? And if so, how much does Daniels contribute to these new diagrams? Yeah, because remember when Dan Quinn, before the draft, he was asked by the sports junkies here at 106.7 one word to describe his quarterback. And the one word that he used for Jayden Daniels was X factor, right? Defenses can come up with that plan. What they're going to do is they're going to use a quarterback spy. More than likely, probably a quick person, somebody that has the ability to get sideline to sideline and make sure they could keep up with Jayden, but also get after Jayden if he does stay in the pocket. But then that creates another issue, and that's why Jayden Daniels is the X factor, because then it goes into the mental awareness of Jayden Daniels to notice that's what's going on, because now you're taking one defender away from coverage because their eyes are on Daniels and what they have to do. So then you could start operating as the quarterback in that sort of capacity. So that's why Jayden Daniels is the X factor, James, because if he does force you to come down with that quarterback spy, if you are coming up with a new scheme to limit Jayden Daniels, now that opens things up for other people. And we kind of saw this in the highlight. I think Brian Baldinger did a great job at this. I would really recommend all of you go to Brian Baldinger's either Instagram or Twitter when he shows the play from the Detroit Lions game, where we line up with 3 wide receivers left. And the Lions, knowing that Jayden Daniels' legs was an issue, so they dedicated another defender in the box. And this is also what helps with the hurry-up offense, because you're forcing the defense to stay in that formation that you want them to. They're not able to sub somebody out, right? So in this regard, what the Detroit Lions did is they had an extra guy in the box, I'm sure dedicated as a QB spy against Daniels, which allowed for our 3 wide receivers out on the left, and then they only had 2 corners over there. So Brian Baldinger highlights this, that Jayden has the ability to either give the ball off to Austin Eckler or throw it on the play. And what Jayden Daniels does correctly is see that there's only 2 corners there on the outside above the 3 wide receivers and throws that screen to Terry. The 2 wide receivers block very well, enough to the point where Terry can squeeze through for that touchdown run. And so that kind of highlights the X factor of Jayden Daniels, because it's not only that is what his legs offer you in terms of being able to extend the play and everything like that. It's his mental capacity in a way to break down the game. And that's why the virtual reality is so incredible in terms of his work ethic to get better. Because if you're using that to your advantage to actually get better, and it's not something that you just have to do, that you're being told that you have to do, that you're very motivated and invested into doing so you can get better, this is where those mental reps really help you in being able to diagnose things in a quick manner, which Jayden Daniels has done. So, of course, Jayden Daniels is going to be in the fold and important. He's going to be the number 1 for Cliff Kingsbury and designing new things, but also taking into consideration that adding Deebo Samuel is a weapon in itself, along with Jalen Lane and company. That you are now adding weapons on the outside that at any moment's notice, you could give them that ball, even if it's a short screen, that's somebody that's going to be tough to bring down. And we saw that with Jalen Lane's rookie tape at Virginia Tech. Very smart in being able to stay behind his blockers, but the speed, the explosion to get upfield in a quick manner to the point where you're not going to be able to stop him. Same thing with Deebo. He's hard to bring down for perimeter defenders. And so that's another layer of this issue for teams is, yeah, you can diagnose and try to come up with a remedy for what we did last season. But the issue that gets brought up is we got new pieces now. And our wide receiving core is actually a step above where it was last year. No disrespect to the guys here before. But they just offer a little bit more of a threat in terms of what a defense views, and sense that you can come up with that plan, but you don't know what we're going to do now with our new pieces. And so, of course, Jayden Daniels is in that wrinkle. He is very important to what Cliff's new playbook is going to be and new plays. Obviously, they're going to have some same kind of structured way of doing things in the terms of the hurry up offense to get you in those bad situations and capitalize on them, but also in ways to isolate defenders and to create mismatches to our advantage to not put Jayden Daniels at a bad position, right? And that's why adding those weapons are very, very important. I would also highlight it's very important why Terry McLaurin needs to also be on this football team, because if you were to take him away from it, now you're kind of back to where you were last year, and that would possibly limit you in some capacity, in my personal opinion. That was a great question. Thank you, James. Now, the next one that was submitted was by our guy, Aled from Wales. Thank you, brother. Oi! His question is, in football over here, we say no players bigger than the club. But does that sentiment hold up in the NFL? Like with Terry McLaurin, he's not being disruptive. He just wants to get paid fairly. What are your thoughts? You could say the NFL is different because there are some places where the player is more important, right? You could go like look at what Aaron Rodgers does to each team that he goes to, right? Like they're adding players to fit Aaron Rodgers' mold and what he wants to do. So I'm not going to say for Washington, it is different. No player is bigger than anything. Like, for example, Aled, if you look at obviously the Commanders spent the number 2 overall pick on Jayden Daniels. Obviously, they coveted the young man. Very important. But they also told him he had to earn it. He wasn't going to be anointed the starter. He had to do something. So what I will say here is, especially for the Commanders, it is no player above the team. You all do have to buy in. But that also brings into question in these contract negotiations, if you have a guy like Terry McLaurin, who is always team above all, because David Harrison last week, Aled, said to us, Zach Ertz brought up the fact that it didn't like Zach Ertz said this to Kay Adams. It doesn't matter if his stat line is over 200 yards or he only got 2 yards. If we win, he still has the same mindset. He still has the same emotional reaction. As long as you're winning, as long as that's happening, he's a happy dude. It's not like he has to be the number 1 guy in every single situation for him to be happy. That's not what's important to him, and it is the team. So it brings up that if you do have a guy like that, shouldn't that be, if you're trying to create that kind of culture, if you're trying to create that situation of an overall team, saying what matters most is team first, if you do have that guy and you kind of drag him through this contract process, what's the message that you're ultimately sending? Does it really matter that you're being a team first guy? Is it more so about your age and your production? That's the only reason we're going to pay you. And that's like the cultural dilemma that you have. But so I'll say that I don't think Terry is being a prima donna. I think he's doing what he's told from the sense of his agent and being able to put pressure on things. So I think this is par for the course of what he's supposed to do. And I agree with you. He's not being disruptive at all. But I don't think that he is above the club in any regard. It's just the fact of you want and you need Terry in the sense of maintaining that culture and making sure that pushing on to the next crop of guys, Luke McCaffrey, Jalen Lane, that they are following suit in what Terry represents. And that's the kind of dilemma that you are walking into by not paying somebody like Terry McLaurin, to have him disgruntled, the kind of message that sends to the other guys, if that makes sense in what I have said so far. I probably have said a bunch of nothing, but I'm just saying that that's what I kind of feel about the situation. It goes the other way in what you're trying to cultivate and maintain. I don't think Terry is bigger than the club, but he is massively important in what they want to do, because in my opinion, you want less eyes on Jayden Daniels than you want more. And by not having Terry on that field, there's going to be more eyes on Jayden Daniels. And that's what I also meant by the Deebo Samuel and Jalen Lane being added to the weaponry, because now it becomes a legit issue for teams with so many weapons on the outside to not have to always be on their toes, so to speak. And I would really advise everybody to go back and watch that Detroit Lions game again, because that was fan-frickin-tastic. Now let's go to the Discord for a couple of our questions. Actually, no, I want to go to the Colonel. The Colonel's questions are always fantastic. His question is First one was, with the largest roster turnover in the league, including key coaching additions, last year's Commanders squad still made it to the NFC Championship game. I'm not one of those naysayers predicting a JD sophomore slump or win-loss/regression this year. I firmly believe AP is putting the key building blocks and finishing touches on a championship team for years to come. What are your thoughts? I think you're on the right path because of how this team was built coming into last year. Like, everyone has highlighted how old the roster is, and they've used that. Like, I saw the one guy's tweet showing a bunch of old dudes in wheelchairs saying this is the Commanders in 2025, which is funny. We should laugh at that. Like, you got to find humor in everything, right? But there is that kind of sentiment being pushed. Well, the reason for that is because they've had to recharge with older guys. It's not like you have an abundance of draft picks. And even if you have an abundance of draft picks to be able to supplement the kind of issues from the roster building before, it doesn't always mean that they're immediately going to come in and be contributors. There's also a negative to that, and the kind of mental miscues and things being blown up and not being able to contain big pass plays or blown blocks. Then you're leaving Jayden Daniels up for possibly getting his head blown off. But this is why it's very important that you are building on what you're doing. It's a good mix of the rookies coming in, learning from the older guys, seeing how things are done, and when they get added in there, they take advantage of that situation rather than walking in and being handed it to them. So yes, I do think that Adam Peters is putting the key building blocks in place, meaning the left tackle, of obviously incredibly important. And then adding Connerly, the right tackle, the Twin Towers, massively important, and because of how flexible they are and athletic they are. One thing you can look at is to say Connerly is one of those more athletic specimens that can get to the outside along with Tunsil. And so these are not only two guys that are similar to Morgan Moses, right? Or guys like that, kind of bigger in stature, better blockers than they are on the outside and being able to get downfield for executing blocks. But you're moving these guys around. You can pull them. You can move them inside. You can do trap blocks with them. And that's something that for the long term, that is something that a young quarterback and a team honestly needs. And they're building on that, to your point, Colonel. And so I think that building in the trenches is objective number one for any team trying to get to the championship level. And that's obviously what they're doing here. You can highlight the Johnny Newton pick as well to say that we're adding in the trenches. And so that's something that is massively important, but also getting somebody like Trey Amos, who could be pivotal this season, being able to lock down some corners and lock down some wide receivers. And that's something that everyone needs to consider looking forward. Now, let's go to our next question from the Colonel. This one is, personally, I'm thrilled with the signing of Von Miller. Why not? Zach Ertz and Bobby Wagner both played 20 games for us last season at a very high level. Von Miller has the same or higher opinions of his work ethic, leadership, and longevity. Isn't Von Miller the missing piece the fan base has been clamoring for as edge rusher? Yes. Me personally, it's something I've been screaming about all offseason, saying they need an edge rusher, especially somebody that can be productive when given the situation. I was naive to think that adding an edge rusher in the draft in the first round was going to fix those issues, was going to supply that, which isn't always the case. I will admit, I was probably wrong about that. If you're trying to get the most production possible, going with somebody like Von Miller when you already have a heavy rotation of guys, especially with the ones that they've added. They went and got Jalen Holmes from the Jets last season. They have Dorrance Armstrong. They added Dietrich Wise. You have Javonte Jean-Baptiste. Now you add in a guy like Von Miller, and that rotation just gets stronger. Not only because Von Miller is there to help you, but just in the minute details of things and how his work ethic does. And you know that when he steps into the field, you're very confident that he can be productive. You saw he had 6 sacks last season for the Buffalo Bills. And it wasn't like he had a huge amount of pass rush snaps. This guy was working his tail off when he was given the opportunity, getting around tackles. Talking about 35 years old, still being able to get around a tackle, that's pretty difficult to do. But Von Miller is a physical freak, dude. And that is somebody who obviously is going to be a great addition to this football team. So I think that, like you said, with the respect that he has for the teammates, the longevity, the leadership, the work ethic, he is the missing piece that when I interviewed Bram Weinstein a couple months ago, he talked about the needing of an edge rusher, right? And we've brought up the question is an elite edge rusher honestly important into being able to compete for championships? And we all agreed that it's more about the rotation. And that's definitely what Von Miller brings for you. And not only in just being in that rotation, just adding more talent, but the fact that he is productive given those limited amount of snaps just speaks to you that this is the missing piece that we have been looking for. I know people will talk about TJ Watt and the timing of it all, but that's a discussion for another day. And I hope nobody questions me about that. Now, the next question, this one was submitted in the Discord by Tim Towner. The dog days of summer are upon us. If you can't do a full-on vacation, where do you run to cool off and relax? I would take Route 50 out to the Shenandoah, sit in the shade of the trees and fish. You can walk clear across the river there. What say you? Oh, that's probably a really good question. I would say, if anything, I would say probably used to go golfing with my boys. Just going out for a day, just relaxing, hitting some golf balls, and help each other out get better. And just a slight little competition there. My wife and I, we had a date day not too long ago. We went to Lewis Beach, which is more like Bayside, and there wasn't many people there, but it was a fantastic time. I know my thighs are still screaming at me for doing that because they were cooked. But I'll say that going to the beach, of course, is one thing because we live so close, so it's a good thing to go out for a day just to enjoy and to relax. I'll also say, honestly, it might sound crazy to you guys, but mowing the lawn. Like, I don't have headphones to wear when I'm mowing the lawn, so I'm just out there mowing. I'm raw dogging, so to speak. And it's a good time just to clear your head and to take up some sunlight and enjoy your time and just think about things and be able to just flush, if that makes sense, just to relax a little bit. As much as people like to say mowing lawn isn't relaxing, I think it's very relaxing when you kind of get the whole, you're doing what you want to do, you see the cuts and you're doing, it's relaxing to me, as crazy as that sounds. Now, the next question that was submitted was from our guy Scott Hartley. With the Trump news, do you feel like this puts the pressure on Harris to do something, and could it affect the RFK deal? No, I don't think this pressures Josh Harris whatsoever. I think at this point, Josh Harris put up $6 billion for this football team, or helped put up $6 billion for this football team. He got the group together to do it, right? And there's a lot of people in the mix there. That's a change that we have seen, obviously, from relative past, that is going to send shockwaves. There's domino effect to it, where you're talking about merchandise, jerseys, everything like that. It's a massive change. Do I think it affects RFK in what any capacity? No, I don't. I really don't. I just think that, Trump does his thing. He does things for a reason. I'm not here to speculate, to chop it up, to try to regurgitate what he's throwing up out there. But I think that this isn't a pressure on Harris, because like I said to Michael Phillips, Harris isn't the one you need to be talking to about that. It's the NFL. It's the sponsors that kind of made that happen. They forced it. We all saw it, witnessed it happen. The beer deals leaving, the FedEx leaving it. Obviously, Fred Smith had a lot to do with that. But in the sense of it all, it's not really on Harris. It's more so the NFL, because I can understand from the NFL's perspective. We're tired of the headache of this being an issue to some group out there whatsoever, being the name. The logo isn't, the name is. So if I were to say anything to Mr. AK-47, it would be simply bring back the logo, and then you're able to celebrate, not in a negative way, Native Americans, which I ultimately think the point that he's trying to get across is that we should be able to celebrate them. Now, the next question from Scott. Do you think everyone should just take a deep breath when it comes to Terry's contract? This fan base has gone wild over the supposed disrespect by not showing a picture of his wedding. Look, I said on Friday, look, boys, it's the weekend. Let's not do this. Like, just because the Commanders post 4 pictures of players getting married or engaged doesn't mean that it's disrespectful to Terry. And to be perfectly honest, they're within their right, even if they wanted to be disrespectful to Terry in that regard. Terry went to the media at his commercial. He didn't have to speak to the media. He could have waited till training camp to show up to say, I'm not going to participate. I'll talk to reporters, and say whatever he wanted to really create a firestorm. He didn't have to do that, but he did. And obviously his agent is probably helping him do that. And so maybe it was disrespectful to Terry, but Terry also has to be a man in a situation to realize you kind of did it by putting the stuff out there at your commercial. And even if they were to do it, like, you can't really be mad at it. You know, it's like 2 guys shadowboxing is essentially what it is. Yes, we should all take a deep breath. At the end of the day, in my personal opinion, the want to win vastly exceeds everything else in this situation. And I would put that in the same corner as Terry McLaurin. Like, what is really important to you, bud? And I'm sure that he would say winning. Of course he wants to have generational wealth for him and his family. Of course that's important for him. But he has earned a good amount of money on teams that didn't do anything. And it wasn't really helping him in a individual sense in being able to portray what he ultimately wants to be seen as, because of the team was bad. Winning is always objective number one. If money is the most important, be my guest. But yes, take a deep breath. The team is invested in the building on last season. They're very invested to get better and to do more this season. And I would imagine that they are under the impression that nothing else matters but getting back to the NFC Championship game and winning. That's what's most important to them. And I would imagine that is the case. And so if you bleed this out, that does create the possibility of a regression from an overall team perspective, which cannot happen whatsoever. And that's why I would say, take a deep breath. Everything is going to be okay. Let's just acknowledge the reality of the situation. And that is, it's going to get done one way or another. And let's just all let it all play out. There's no reason for us to get frustrated and worried about something that we cannot control in this sort of scenario. Last question from Scott. With training camp starting, what camp battle are you looking forward to most? And do you have a camp darling yet? I do think strong safety is one that I'm keeping my eye on, as well the secondary. I think that's one that's going to be very important for this upcoming season. They were top 5 against passing yards last season in the NFL. It's something that they have to build on and get better overall as a team, but also the defensive ends and how they kind of orchestrate themselves. Are they going to be able to make it hard on the offense? If because of how good this offense was last season, being top 5, if they're able to have some early and good sustainable success against our front, that's a good thing for everyone involved. We could start maybe going, oh my gosh, is the offense taking a step back? Or maybe it's the fact that maybe our defense has gotten better. And I think that a lot of that has to do with how the defensive ends are going to be utilized, and being able to stop the run. And I know that everyone's going to probably be beating a dead horse over Brian Robinson and his usage, and if they are not doing great in running the ball in camp. But I think that is something to take into consideration here. And I would honestly, one guy, the camp darling that I'm really looking forward to is Jalen Lane. Not only from the return perspective, but in the sense that if he does flourish, if he does do well in training camp, you're cooking with gas. Then you really got some weapons out there that you have to take into consideration. Noah Brown just posted a workout video the other day. Looks great. Happy to see that. Hopefully he's back and ready in time for training camp. Is he going to be okayed to embrace contact? Not 100% sure. We'll find out soon in this week. But just saying, you're adding more weapons to the equation. man, is this offense going to be fun to watch. And so my darling is Jalen Lane. I highlighted him in early April as somebody that really wanted to take a look at and to bring on this football team. And after we drafted him, I felt very happy. And I'm still the same way now. I'm really excited to see what Jalen Lane provides, not only from a return perspective, but from a receiving perspective as well. Now, the next question, this one from Deluxe. What impact is AI and systems like Grok going to have on sports talk / coverage? P.S. Nothing beats research. Grok and Google Search AI are often wrong from what I've seen. Garbage content in, garbage AI out. In sports talk and coverage, I think it's going to have a lot. I think what Deluxe is kind of highlighting too is that, like, I think it was AI, Google AI or ESPN, I think used AI to talk about a player had passed away from the Chicago White Sox team. And they said that he was on the White Sox team in 2005. The ESPN article did after his death, which rest in peace, of course. But like a lot of people commented were like, what the heck? This guy was the literally the closer when they won the World Series. He wasn't just on the team. He was massively important at the entire World Series. And so they all called it out, saying that's most likely AI in the business there. And I think that it's a half-assed way of doing things. As much as it is a quick and easy thing for people to utilize, to be able just to get information out there, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? And so I think that a lot of people are going to have an issue with it. Ultimately, it's going to degrade things with how much it is used. I think AI is something you have to be concerned about overall as just a typical human being. But somebody who's in the line of work, construction, AI can't do our jobs. As much as we like to say, like, AI could print out what you're supposed to do, how things are supposed to be built, how it's supposed to look. They're not going to get, AI's not going to go out there and build it. You know, you could have 3D printing, but who's going to put it together, right? Like, you can't build something that size. Ultimately, I think that the human element is vastly important. And I think that we all realize that and know that that's something that you have to take into consideration moving forward. Sorry. I'm not that keen into the AI and all that other stuff, Arch. I'm sure you are. You're a smart guy. Me, not so much. But you being a smart dude, you probably obviously know what that means. Me, not so much. But I hope you guys had a fantastic summer so far. Very excited about training camp. Looking forward to what we have in store. I really do hope that Terry McLaurin signs his deal. I don't want to see this thing pushed along, dragged along. I don't want to. There's no reason to play grab ass at this point. I think Michael Phillips said it really well. Like, there's no reason. You're not hampered in the cap. And, like, I've seen a bunch of freaking teams throw money out. Like, we've seen this with every NFL team. They're just throwing money out, and you're like, how are they doing this? How are they acquiring this guy? How are they giving out all these contracts? And meanwhile, we're sitting here like, we can't pay John Allen, Daron Payne this much because of our team and our cap, but these teams are doing it. And a lot of that has to do with the cash flow that the ownership is putting out there. And so what I'd say is, why can't that happen for us? I get it. I get the whole money situation. I get that you don't want to kneecap yourselves. I'm not saying to pay Terry as a number one wide receiver. I'm not sure if that's what he's requesting. I've said on Twitter, I think the holdup is that Terry McLaurin wants to put a Texas Roadhouse in the Ashburn facility. Me, myself, I'm a huge fan of Texas Roadhouse. That's my favorite restaurant. I think it's the best restaurant in America. I'll say that right now. It's America under a roof. But Terry would have to settle for those buns to be delivered daily, fresh. That's all. That's what I think the holdup is. Y'all could talk about guarantees and all this other stuff. I think it's Texas Roadhouse, man. I'll put my money on that. And so I hope that it does get done. But I haven't been overly worried. It's not a huge concern for me. I was very surprised by Terry's impromptu press conference that he had at the Eastern Motors commercial that he had, because he did seem to be peeved. He saying that the team hasn't contacted him in a month, and that doesn't sit right with you. And personally, me, I'm a huge champion of Terry McLaurin. I have been since he was drafted, the day after he was drafted here. I know, but I also am under the mindset of you don't pay a man for what he's done, you pay a man for what he can do. And I realized that. You can't pay Terry because of what he did in the past. You can't pay Terry because of what he's went through. You can't pay Terry because strictly what he means to the fan base. And nobody is expecting him to be paid based on that merit. But what I can guarantee you is that ever since he was drafted, even before he was drafted when he was in college, what did Urban Meyer say to him? You don't have the hands to make the team, to be productive, and to make it to the next level. So what did Terry do? He worked his ass off. He was catching, 300, 500 balls a day to get his hands better. He comes out, plays his years at Ohio State, gets his shot, and then as a third-round pick is expected to be a special teamer, a gun. And then right after that, we see, oh no, he's not just a special teams guy. He's the number one wide receiver, and he's damn good. I've been preaching for a while. I think he's elite. One of the most elite wide receivers in this league. And it's hard for people to kind of gauge that because it's not like you can really look at Terry McLaurin and say that he's a phenomenal route runner, that he's a physical specimen, that he has the best hands in the world. No, but the thing that Terry brings to the equation is not something that you can really put on paper. It's his ability to persevere through really crappy situations. And that echoes onto the football field itself. Look at all of the catches that he had. Look at last year and the opportunities that he had. Everyone is highlighting Quinyon Mitchell as one of the best corners in the league right now. And he dusted Quinyon Mitchell on that corner route for that touchdown against the Eagles. You can look at the Chargers game from a couple years ago where that ball should have been picked from Taylor Heineke at the sideline. I was in the stadium that day. Hall and I were watching it. I was 100% convinced that ball was picked off. To see them move the chains, I was like, what is happening right now? Terry caught that football. And it's not because he has a great hands. It's not like you can look at him and say, oh, he's DeAndre Hopkins' hand size. That's why he's so good at catching the football. He just gets things done. And I know people were talking about Terry last year in the offseason, saying, well, after they drafted Jayden Daniels, saying, you should trade Terry McLaurin right now. That's asinine. That's crazy. Because he's never had a quarterback in his career. And if you really want to know if you have something good in Terry McLaurin, let him play with the rookie. Let him prove it to you. And that's my message here now. Is yes, you don't pay a man for what he has done, but you pay a man for what he can do. And what I know for a fact is in every step of Terry McLaurin's career, he has been doubted, expectations have been low of him, and he has overachieved at every single step along that way. So you can doubt in paying him that money. I wholeheartedly, I would understand that. But it's just another step for Terry McLaurin to kind of prove himself into what he's possibly able to do. And he's just going to, if you're ever going to feel comfortable with paying an older wide receiver that kind of money, you feel very comfortable with Terry McLaurin because he has proved to you time and time again over the years that this is the guy to do it for you. Now to wrap up this episode, boys, we're joined by former Redskins wide receiver, currently of the Believe in Commanders podcast with Scott Jackson, is Anthony Armstrong. Thank you for joining me, Anthony. How you doing, man?
Hey, what's up, man? I appreciate your patience. Had a little bold child. So we took him inside and we're all good.
I'm sorry to hear that, brother. That sounds terrible. It sounds terrifying, honestly.
Yeah, so it was okay. It was okay. A little moment. We'll be all right.
I got
How's
you. Everything's good. Everything's good. But I did want to, because you, Scott Jackson, obviously you were out of the state. But Scott Jackson did an interview with Ian Rappaport, which kind of he hinted that they're not far away from a contract with Terry. But from your perspective, based on that interview with Scott Jackson on your podcast, what do you think of the Terry McLaurin situation? Do you think Ian Rappaport is right?
You know, I mean, I think Ian is going to have some of the best sources out of everybody, you know, and it makes sense. I mean, when both sides say they want to be together, then it makes sense that something's going to get done eventually. Now you just got to figure out when, and it's hopefully soon. Something here before camp would be great. I don't need any extra drama when we're going into training camp. You want everybody to be able to go and enjoy themselves and focus on football, not have to focus on contracts, and especially when it's a guy like Terry. He's a leader, and you want him under contract. You want him in the fold on day one.
My man, I know your kids are calling for you. I won't take too much of your time, of course, Anthony. But I wanted to ask you the question because training camp is starting, practice on Wednesday. You being such a juggler, you could say, so to speak, with holding so many different jobs at the moment. But what was your most favorite and least favorite drill from training camp?
Man, my favorite drill, I think I really liked when you could finally kind of work some concepts against the defense, like red zone where red zone drill would always be fun because you could score every play and you'd like to get to celebrate and you'd give the defenses fits. But then sometimes I hated one-on-ones because sometimes people would just cheat the drill. You could kind of scheme things a certain way. Or those days they had those unnecessary like physical days where it's like, hey, we're gonna block all day, and I'm like, I don't really want to do all that, coach. But it comes with the territory. You got to get dirty a little bit, and so it comes with the territory.
My man, and being obviously a former pro wide receiver, when you say the secondary would cheat, that's because would they know what route was coming? Because it's not like you could have a huddle and everything like that, but obviously the repetition of it all, you could kind of guess at what's coming.
Well, I mean, you could cheat because they weren't throwing any flags, right? So then they'd get a little extra handsy, or they would jump. Or sometimes they would limit the routes you could run if it was early in camp, so they know, hey, you're only running 3 things. So defenses like to get extra riled up on early in camp because they think they're really doing something. Meanwhile, it's like, dude, we only have in like 5% of the offense right now.
I'm with you. I know that we've talked to you before about training camp, but I want to know if there's any changes to your mindset of your favorite memories of training camp.
Man, I mean, my favorite memories is like those first couple of days where you're on the sideline and it feels like those NFL films moments. And then it's just you can smell the grass. My friends have been saying it smells like football outside. The grass smells like football.
Yeah, it does. That's funny. I just thought about that the other day. I was like, it smells like football practice.
You get out there when you finally put on pads, and you start to see the drills and the whistles going, and you can feel that intensity building up. That's probably like your favorite moment because football is really, really about to go down. It's not just shorts and jerseys. You're really about to play some ball. So those days, like when you just get to sit back and look and just watch everybody working, you're like, man, we playing ball at the top level right now. So yeah, that's what I always enjoy.
Yeah,
Get out my wallet.
It smells like sweat and freshly cut grass is exactly what it smells like, Anthony. But the last question I have for you was they added Von Miller. And me being an older man myself, I respect the heck out of Von Miller and what he brings to the team. What was your kind of reaction to the Von Miller signing, and what do you think it means?
Man, when I saw that, I was like, is that what is this? Are we signing this guy? But when you look at the way it's set up, it makes some sense. And honestly, this is the best value that you're going to get from any player on the free agency list right now, especially at that end position. You got to think about it. Nothing happened in free agency, nothing happened in the draft. So who's left, right? A whole bunch of guys that are, frankly, they're not on the rosters for a reason. They're not on rosters for a reason. And Von Miller is a guy that's got Super Bowls. He knows how to win, and he can teach so much knowledge to the young players. And he's only going to join teams that are planning to play in February, so he's not going to just join a team just because. The other part I like about it is that he gets to play his hometown team twice. He's from DeSoto, Texas. And, if you don't think that that's not something in the back of his mind, I think that it is. I mean, the guy is going to play them on Christmas. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are important games. And you get to play your hometown squad, he's going to fill out half the stadium. So I love the signing. It's one of those ones where it's like, hey, it makes sense. It's kind of like if you hide something in the store in a different section and he's like, I'm going to come back and get this later. And somebody else finds it. But we found ourselves a gem in Von Miller. 36 years old. He still can get after the quarterback. So yeah, I like the signing. I think it'll pay dividends for sure.
Absolutely. Last one. I know you got to go, but one player that you predict is going to be standing out that isn't under the normal radar in training camp.
You know, I mean, my big pick on like the top rookie I've been looking for or looking at has been Kane Madrano.
Okay.
The thing is I don't know how much noise he's gonna make in training camp, right? Like I think he'll splash here or there, but I think where he's gonna just make an impact just on his versatility on the field and where he's gonna be able to line up. But I'm really interested to see what Jaylen Lane looks like. I think he's gonna make some noise, like that first special teams day where they go line up with punt return. Like I'd like to see a little house call. I'd love to see Twitter ablaze about what Jaylen Lane is doing out there in special teams and how he's flying around on offense. So I want to see some fireworks, you know. So if you want to give me, I'll give you an oddball one. Cliff Kingsbury. That's who's going to be cooking, because you're going to see a lot of creativity in the offense from what they're going to allow people to see. I'm interested to see him get to cooking and how he gets this offense employed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's going to be very telling to see how much they allow everyone to see, including the media, in terms of not being able to blow the whistle on anything. Anthony, I can't thank you enough for taking some time out for me, brother. I'm sorry to hear about whatever happened with your child, of course. I hope everything is okay. But get back to it. I don't want to take your attention away too much. That's more important for you, brother.
No, he's good. Thank you. I appreciate that. Now he jumped in and he was like, "I'm ready to swim." I'm like, "You're not ready just yet." He's all good, man. We were here with him, so that's the thankful part. But we'll catch up with y'all next week. Training camp is here. Can you believe it?
I can't. I was thinking about that today. I was like, really training camp this week, or is it like a mini camp? No, it's training camp, man. The end of summer is almost here. As much as everyone, all the young kids don't want to hear that, it's true.
Absolutely. Take y'all ass back to school.
On that note, we'll see you guys again next time. Thank you, Anthony. Have a good one.
Talk to you.
All right, everybody. We just spoke with Anthony. Really appreciate Anthony's time, of course, as always. I wish we could have had a little bit more, but look, man, he's a busy man. Got lots of kids to take care of. Thank you to everyone who contributed to this episode. Thank you to Michael Phillips. Thank you to Anthony Armstrong. Thank you to James. Thank you to Arch. Thank you to Scott Hartley. Thank you to Aled. Thank you to Colonel for all your questions and submissions. I really appreciate it. If you guys want to comment on AK47 and his comments about the old name, please feel free to blow up the comment section. Of course, subscribe if you can to this show. I'd really appreciate it. I wish the mics could have been here, but it's just a busy day. And with training camp coming around the corner, we'd love to hear who you think is going to be really taking the light for themselves in the spotlight of training camp. Would love to hear from you guys. Love you guys. If you made it this far, you're frickin' champion. We'll see you guys again next week. Possibly we'll have something on Wednesday for you. I'll let you know whatever comes down the pipeline, if whatever sees fit. All right, everybody. I'm Kyle, and I'll see you again next week. Have a great, safe week, everybody. Washington football. Woo! What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.